The Mediterranean sun felt like liquid gold on my skin as I leaned back in the cushioned lounge chair, a virgin pina colada sweating in my hand. The resort in Santorini stretched before me like a postcard come to life. Whitewashed buildings cascading down volcanic cliffs, the Aegean Sea shimmering in impossible shades of blue and turquoise. After 9 years of 60-hour work weeks, missed birthdays, and canceled plans, I was finally here, finally taking the vacation I'd earned 100 times over. My name is Marcus Webb, and for nearly a decade, I'd been the backbone of Titanium Solutions, a mid-sized tech consulting firm in Chicago. I wasn't the CEO. I wasn't even a VP. I was the senior operations manager, the guy who made sure everything actually worked while the executives took the credit. I closed my eyes, letting the warm breeze carry away the tension that had lived in my shoulders for years. The sound of waves lapping against the shore below mixed with distant laughter from other guests. For the first time in what felt like forever, my mind wasn't racing through project timelines, client emergencies, or my boss Gerald's impossible demands. The journey to this moment had been long and exhausting. I remembered my first day at Titanium Solutions like it was yesterday, an eager 26-year-old with a fresh MBA and dreams of climbing the corporate ladder. The company had been smaller then, scrappier, with about 40 employees and a handful of clients. Gerald Hutchins had interviewed me personally, promising opportunities for growth, mentorship, and a chance to build something meaningful. For the first few years, I'd believed him. I'd thrown myself into the work with the kind of enthusiasm only the young and naive possess. I'd stayed late, come in early, volunteered for the difficult projects no one else wanted. I'd learned the business inside and out, mastered every system, built relationships with clients that went beyond transactional. By year 3, I was managing accounts worth over $10 million annually. By year 5, I was essentially running the operations department, though my title and salary didn't reflect it. By year 7, I'd trained 3 people who were promoted above me. And by year 9, I was exhausted, burned out, and finally taking the vacation I should have taken years ago. My phone buzzed on the small table beside me. I ignored it. This was my time, my sanctuary. The 2 weeks leading up to this trip had been a masterclass in preparation. I'd created detailed transition documents for every active project, held training sessions with the team, set up automated systems to handle routine tasks, and made myself available by email for true emergencies. I'd done everything humanly possible to ensure the company would run smoothly in my absence. Gerald had barely acknowledged my efforts, signing off on my vacation request with a distracted wave of his hand while scrolling through his phone. Yeah, fine. Just make sure nothing falls apart while you're gone," he'd said, not even looking up. I should have known then that he hadn't actually processed what I was telling him. That in his mind, I was always available, always on call, always ready to drop everything for Titanium Solutions. My phone buzzed again, then again. With a resigned sigh, I picked it up, squinting at the screen in the bright sunlight. 12 missed calls, all from Gerald Hutchins, my boss and the company's chief operating officer. My stomach tightened instinctively, a Pavlovian response to seeing his name. There were also 6 missed calls from Todd Brennan, the interim operations manager I'd spent 2 weeks training, 3 from the main office line, and a string of increasingly frantic text messages. "Marcus, call me ASAP. Where are you? We have a situation. This is urgent. Pick up your phone. The Meridian client is losing it. Need you now." I felt the familiar weight settling back onto my shoulders, the relaxation I'd finally achieved evaporating like morning mist. Before I could decide whether to answer, the phone erupted in my hand. Gerald's name flashed across the screen. "This better be life or death," I muttered, swiping to answer. "Hello? Webb, where the hell have you been?" Gerald's voice exploded through the speaker. No greeting, no acknowledgement that I was supposed to be unreachable, just immediate aggression. "I'm on vacation, Gerald, as approved, 3 months ago." I kept my voice level, professional, even as irritation prickled under my skin. Yeah, well, we've got a situation. The Meridian account is imploding. The client is threatening to walk, and nobody here knows how to handle it. I sat up straighter, my relaxation evaporating completely. The Meridian account was worth $3 million annually, a contract I'd personally negotiated and managed for the past 4 years. Richard Chen, the CEO of Meridian Technologies, was not just a client, but a friend, someone I'd known since college. We'd built a relationship based on trust, transparency, and consistent results. For him to be threatening to walk meant something had gone seriously wrong. "What happened?" I asked, already running through possibilities in my mind. "That's not important right now. What's important is that you get back here and fix it." "Gerald, I'm in Greece. I can't just—" "I don't care if you're on the moon, Marcus. This is your responsibility. You should have prepared the team better before you left." Heat flushed through my chest, anger rising like a tide. "I spent 2 weeks creating transition documents, held training sessions with the team, set up automated systems to handle routine tasks, and made myself available by email for true emergencies. I'd done everything humanly possible to ensure the company would run smoothly in my absence." Gerald had barely acknowledged my efforts, signing off on my vacation request with a distracted wave of his hand while scrolling through his phone. Yeah, fine. Just make sure nothing falls apart while you're gone," he'd said, not even looking up. I should have known then that he hadn't actually processed what I was telling him, that in his mind I was always available, always on call, always ready to drop everything for Titanium Solutions. My phone buzzed again, then again. With a resigned sigh, I picked it up, squinting at the screen in the bright sunlight. 12 missed calls, all from Gerald Hutchins, my boss and the company's chief operating officer. My stomach tightened instinctively, a Pavlovian response to seeing his name. There were also 6 missed calls from Todd Brennan, the interim operations manager I'd spent 2 weeks training, 3 from the main office line, and a string of increasingly frantic text messages. "Marcus, call me ASAP. Where are you? We have a situation. This is urgent. Pick up your phone. The Meridian client is losing it. Needs you now." I felt the familiar weight settling back onto my shoulders, the relaxation I'd finally achieved evaporating like morning mist. Before I could decide whether to answer, the phone erupted in my hand. Gerald's name flashed across the screen. "This better be life or death," I muttered, swiping to answer. "Hello? Webb, where the hell have you been?" Gerald's voice exploded through the speaker. No greeting, no acknowledgement that I was supposed to be unreachable, just immediate aggression. "I'm on vacation, Gerald, as approved 3 months ago." I kept my voice level, professional, even as irritation prickled under my skin. "Yeah, well, we've got a situation. The Meridian account is imploding. The client is threatening to walk, and nobody here knows how to handle it." I sat up straighter, my relaxation evaporating completely. The Meridian account was worth $3 million annually, a contract I'd personally negotiated and managed for the past 4 years. Richard Chen, the CEO of Meridian Technologies, was not just a client, but a friend, someone I'd known since college. We'd built a relationship based on trust, transparency, and consistent results. For him to be threatening to walk meant something had gone seriously wrong. "What happened?" I asked, already running through possibilities in my mind. "That's not important right now. What's important is that you get back here and fix it." "Gerald, I'm in Greece. I can't just—" "I don't care if you're on the moon, Marcus. This is your responsibility. You should have prepared the team better before you left." Heat flushed through my chest, anger rising like a tide. "I spent 2 weeks creating transition documents, held training sessions with the team, set up automated systems to handle routine tasks, and made myself available by email for true emergencies. I'd done everything humanly possible to ensure the company would run smoothly in my absence." Gerald had barely acknowledged my efforts, signing off on my vacation request with a distracted wave of his hand while scrolling through his phone. Yeah, fine. Just make sure nothing falls apart while you're gone," he'd said, not even looking up. I should have known then that he hadn't actually processed what I was telling him, that in his mind I was always available, always on call, always ready to drop everything for Titanium Solutions. My phone buzzed again, then again. With a resigned sigh, I picked it up, squinting at the screen in the bright sunlight. 12 missed calls, all from Gerald Hutchins, my boss and the company's chief operating officer. My stomach tightened instinctively, a Pavlovian response to seeing his name. There were also 6 missed calls from Todd Brennan, the interim operations manager I'd spent 2 weeks training, 3 from the main office line, and a string of increasingly frantic text messages. "Marcus, call me ASAP. Where are you? We have a situation. This is urgent. Pick up your phone. The Meridian client is losing it. Needs you now." I felt the familiar weight settling back onto my shoulders, the relaxation I'd finally achieved evaporating like morning mist. Before I could decide whether to answer, the phone erupted in my hand. Gerald's name flashed across the screen. "This better be life or death," I muttered, swiping to answer. "Hello? Webb, where the hell have you been?" Gerald's voice exploded through the speaker. No greeting, no acknowledgement that
My heart hammered against my ribs. The threat hung in the air between us, impossible to misunderstand. "Are you seriously threatening to fire me right now?" "I'm telling you what the consequences of your choices will be. You want to prioritize a vacation over the company that's paid your salary for 9 years? Fine, but there will be repercussions." "The company didn't pay my salary, Gerald. I earned every cent. I built half our client relationships from scratch. I streamlined operations that saved us millions. I've given everything to Titanium Solutions, and you know it. I've worked through illnesses, through family emergencies, through every holiday for the past 9 years. I've sacrificed relationships, my health, my personal life. And the one time I take a vacation that was approved months ago, you're threatening to fire me? What I know is that you're being insubordinate and unprofessional. Monday morning, Marcus, your choice." The line went dead. I stood there, phone clutched in my hand, staring out at the perfect blue horizon. My entire body trembled, not with fear, but with a rage so pure it felt cleansing. 9 years. 9 years of loyalty, of excellence, of going above and beyond, and this was how it ended? With an ultimatum delivered while I was finally taking care of myself? A couple walked past, hand in hand, laughing about something. They looked so carefree, so unburdened. The woman was probably in her 30s, wearing a flowing sundress, her hair loose and sun-streaked. The man had his arm around her waist, whispering something that made her throw her head back in delight. I envied them, envied their lightness, their joy, their ability to be present in the moment without a phone call destroying their peace. My phone buzzed again. This time it was an email from Gerald. My hands shook slightly as I opened it. "Marcus, per our conversation, please consider this your formal notice. Due to your refusal to address a critical business emergency and your unprofessional conduct, your employment with Titanium Solutions is terminated effective immediately. HR will be in touch regarding final paperwork and the return of company property. Your final paycheck will be processed according to standard procedures. Please arrange to return your laptop, access cards, and any other company materials within 48 hours. I read it 3 times, each word sinking in like stones dropping into still water. Fired. After 9 years of perfect performance reviews, of exceeding every metric, of being the person everyone called when things went wrong, of building systems that became the backbone of the company's operations, I was fired for taking a vacation, for setting a boundary, for finally, after nearly a decade, putting myself first. I should have felt devastated, panicked, worried about my mortgage, my career, my future. My mind should have been racing through worst-case scenarios, calculating how long my savings would last, wondering how I'd explain this gap in my resume. Instead, I felt something unexpected. Relief. It washed over me like a wave, cool and cleansing. The weight I'd been carrying for years, the constant stress, the impossible expectations, the feeling that I could never do enough, suddenly lifted. And then, slowly, a smile crept across my face. Gerald had no idea what he'd just done, no idea who he'd just crossed, because there was something Gerald didn't know, something nobody at Titanium Solutions knew except me and one other person. I walked back to my lounge chair and sat down, my mind already racing through possibilities. I picked up my piña colada, took a long sip, and pulled up a different contact in my phone.
The call connected after 2 rings. "Marcus, how's Greece treating you?" The voice was warm, friendly, with a hint of a Boston accent. Richard Shen always sounded like he was smiling, even over the phone. "Hey, Richard, it's beautiful. Listen, do you have a minute? Something interesting just happened." Richard Shen was the CEO of Meridian Technologies, the very client Gerald was panicking about. He was also my former college roommate and one of my closest friends. We'd met freshman year at Northwestern, randomly assigned as roommates in a cramped dorm room that smelled perpetually of pizza and ambition. We'd stayed up countless nights talking about our dreams, our plans, the companies we'd build, and the impact we'd make. After graduation, we'd gone different directions. Richard had jumped straight into the startup world, while I'd taken the more traditional corporate route. But we'd stayed close, meeting for drinks every few weeks, texting regularly, maintaining the kind of friendship that survives the chaos of building careers. 4 years ago, when Meridian was looking for a consulting partner to help scale their operations, Richard had reached out to me. I had brought the opportunity to Titanium Solutions, personally pitched it to Gerald and the executive team, and then managed every aspect of the account. I'd worked directly with Richard's team, understanding their needs, anticipating problems before they arose, delivering results that exceeded expectations. The relationship had been one of my proudest professional achievements, a perfect blend of friendship and business, built on mutual respect and trust. What Gerald didn't know was that Richard had been trying to recruit me to Meridian for the past 2 years. It had started casually, comments here and there about how well I'd fit with their culture, how much they could use someone with my skills. Then about 6 months ago, it had become more serious. Richard had offered me a position heading up their new operations division, a role that would come with a significant pay increase, equity in a rapidly growing company, and actual work-life balance. The offer had been tempting, incredibly tempting, but I'd declined, feeling some misplaced sense of loyalty to Titanium Solutions. I'd built so much there, invested so much of myself. Walking away, it felt like admitting defeat, like throwing away 9 years of work. That loyalty had just been incinerated. "I've got all the time in the world for you," Richard said. "What's going on?" I told him everything. The phone call, Gerald's demands, the ultimatum, the termination email. As I spoke, I could hear Richard's breathing change, could sense his anger building even across thousands of miles. "He fired you while you're on vacation? After 9 years?" Richard's voice was tight with controlled fury. "Marcus, I'm sorry, but your boss is an idiot." No argument here. "And let me guess, he's freaking out about our account because nobody there actually knows what they're doing without you." "That would be my assessment. What happened on your end?" Richard sighed. "We had a quarterly review meeting scheduled, standard stuff. Go over metrics, discuss upcoming projects, address any concerns. Todd showed up completely unprepared. He didn't know our current project status, couldn't answer basic questions about timelines, and when my team raised some concerns about the new system implementation, he literally said, 'I'll have to ask Marcus about that.' When we pointed out that you were on vacation, he looked like a deer in headlights." I closed my eyes, frustration mixing with vindication. I'd spent hours with Todd, walking him through everything. I'd created documents, recorded videos, set up systems specifically so this wouldn't happen. I gave him everything he needed to handle that meeting. I'm sure you did, but there's a difference between having information and understanding it. Todd doesn't have your instincts, your relationship with our team, your deep knowledge of our business. And honestly, Marcus, that's not his fault. You can't download 9 years of experience and relationship building into someone's brain in 2 weeks. So what did you tell Gerald? I told him we needed to speak with you directly, that we weren't comfortable moving forward without clarity on who would be managing our account. He got defensive, started talking about how Todd was perfectly capable and how we needed to trust their process. I told him that trust is earned, not demanded, and our trust was in you, not in Titanium Solutions as an entity. I couldn't help but smile. That was Richard. Diplomatic but firm, always clear about his expectations. How did he react? About as well as you'd expect.
He tried to smooth things over, promised he'd personally oversee our account, threw out some corporate buzzwords about synergy and optimization. I told him I'd give him until end of week to present a plan that addressed our concerns. That was yesterday, and now he's panicking because he realizes he can't deliver without me. Exactly. Marcus, I'm going to be blunt with you. I don't want to work with Titanium Solutions without you there. You're the reason that relationship works.
your expertise, your integrity, your ability to actually solve problems instead of just talking about them. Without you, I have zero interest in continuing that partnership. My heart rate picked up. You're going to pull the account? I'm going to do exactly what makes sense for my company. And what makes sense is working with people who value talent and loyalty. Titanium Solutions just proved they value neither. There was a pause, and I could hear the smile in Richard's voice when he continued. But here's what I'm really calling about. That offer I made you 6 months ago? It's still on the table. Actually, I'd like to sweeten it. We've grown since then, and we need someone like you even more now. I'm talking VP of Operations, 40% salary increase from what you were making, full benefits, equity package, and actual work-life balance. We don't do the 60-hour-week nonsense. We believe in efficiency, not performative workaholism. I felt something shift in my chest, like a door opening onto a room I hadn't known existed. Richard, before you answer, let me tell you what we're building. We're expanding into 3 new markets next year. We're developing products that are going to change how mid-sized companies handle operations. We need someone to build and lead the team that makes that happen. Someone who understands both the technical side and the human side. Someone who can build relationships, develop talent, create systems that actually work. That's you, Marcus. That's always been you. We talked for another 40 minutes, and with every minute I felt more certain. Richard walked me through the role in detail, the team I'd be building, the projects I'd be leading, the autonomy I'd have. He talked about Meridian's culture, about how they deliberately built a company where people could do their best work without sacrificing their lives. He talked about the equity package, about how if the company continued on its current trajectory, that equity could be worth serious money in a few years. He talked about the team I'd be joining, people who were smart and passionate and collaborative. By the time we hung up, I had a verbal offer and a start date for 3 weeks out. Enough time to finish my vacation and take a week to decompress before starting. Marcus, Richard said before we disconnected, I'm going to have a very interesting conversation with Titanium Solutions about the future of our partnership. And I want you to know, this isn't about revenge or spite. This is about making the right business decision. The right business decision is working with people who value excellence and treat their people well. Titanium Solutions just proved they don't. I appreciate that, Richard. More than you know. Thank you for taking a chance on us. I know this is a big change. Actually, I said, looking out at the Aegean Sea, the sun warming my face, and felt something I hadn't experienced in years, excitement about my future. Not anxiety, not dread, not the grinding determination to just get through another week. Actual excitement. My phone buzzed constantly over the next few hours, texts and calls from colleagues at Titanium Solutions who'd heard about my termination. The news had spread fast, probably because HR had sent out an email about my departure. Most messages were shocked and sympathetic. A few were angry on my behalf. My friend Jennifer from accounting called me in tears. This is insane, Marcus. Everyone knows you're the reason half our operations run smoothly. Gerald is making a huge mistake. It's okay, Jen, really. I think this might be the best thing that could have happened. How can you say that? You loved that job. No, I said slowly, realizing the truth as I spoke it. I loved the work. I loved solving problems and building relationships. But the job? The politics, the lack of recognition, the expectation that I'd sacrifice everything? I didn't love that. I just didn't know there was an alternative. Jennifer was quiet for a moment. What are you going to do? I have some options. Good options. Don't worry about me. I'm not worried about you, Marcus. You're talented enough to land anywhere. I'm worried about us. Without you here, this place is going to fall apart. She wasn't wrong. Over the next few hours, I heard from other colleagues painting a picture of chaos at Titanium Solutions. Todd had apparently quit that afternoon, overwhelmed and unwilling to take the fall for a situation he'd been set up to fail in. 2 other operations team members had submitted their resignations, citing the toxic work environment and Gerald's management style. The Meridian situation was spiraling, with Richard's team refusing to meet with anyone except me, and apparently word had gotten out to other clients, some of whom were now questioning their own relationships with Titanium Solutions. I should have felt guilty, should have felt some responsibility to step in and help, but I didn't. I'd given Titanium Solutions 9 years of my life. I'd built systems, trained people, created documentation, done everything possible to ensure the company could function without me. If it was falling apart now, that wasn't because I hadn't prepared them. It was because they'd built a house of cards and I was the only thing holding it together. The next morning, I woke up to a series of frantic emails. Not to me, I was CC'd on a chain between Gerald and the executive team. Someone had forwarded it to me, probably Jennifer. The subject line read, "Urgent, Meridian Technologies." I opened it with my coffee, sitting on my private balcony overlooking the caldera. The sun was just rising, painting the sky in shades of pink and gold. It was the kind of morning that made you believe in fresh starts. Gerald's email was a masterpiece of panic poorly disguised as professional concern. "Team, I've just received notification from Meridian Technologies that they are terminating our contract effective in 30 days per the terms of our agreement. This represents a significant revenue loss and will impact our Q3 and Q4 projections. I need everyone's ideas on how to salvage this relationship. We have a meeting scheduled with their CEO, Richard Chen, tomorrow at 2 p.m. All hands on deck. This is our top priority." I couldn't help but smile. Richard worked fast. The email chain that followed was a cascade of confusion and finger-pointing. Various executives weighed in with suggestions that ranged from reasonable to absurd. Someone suggested offering Meridian a discount. Someone else proposed assigning a senior executive to personally manage the account. Gerald suggested bringing in an outside consultant to provide fresh perspective. Not one of them addressed the actual problem. They'd fired the person who made the relationship work. Then came an email from Susan Park, the CEO of Titanium Solutions. I'd always respected Susan. She was smart, fair, and had built the company from nothing 15 years ago. She'd started as a solo consultant, grown it to a 40-person firm, and navigated the company through recessions, market changes, and industry disruptions. But she was often too hands-off, trusting her executives to manage their departments while she focused on strategy and business development. "Gerald, I need a full briefing on this situation. Meridian has been one of our stable accounts for 4 years. What changed? And I'm seeing in the HR reports that Marcus Webb was terminated yesterday. What's the connection here? Marcus has been with us for 9 years and has consistently been one of our top performers. I need to understand what happened." Gerald's response came an hour later. "Susan, the two situations are unrelated. Marcus chose to prioritize a personal vacation over a critical business need, demonstrating a lack of commitment to the company. When given the opportunity to return and address the emergency, he refused. This kind of attitude is not aligned with our values of client service and dedication. As for Meridian, we're assessing the situation and will have a recovery plan in place shortly. I'm confident we can resolve this." I nearly choked on my coffee. Unrelated? The man was either delusional or a pathological liar. And the way he'd framed my refusal, as if I'd simply decided not to help rather than offering to assist remotely while maintaining a reasonable boundary. Another email popped up, this time directly to me from Susan. "Marcus, I just learned about your termination. I'm trying to understand what happened. Would you be willing to speak with me? I know you're on vacation, so no pressure, but I'd appreciate your perspective when you have time.
Your contributions to this company have been significant, and I'm concerned about the circumstances of your departure." I thought about it for a moment, then replied, "Susan, I'd be happy to speak with you. I'm available by phone anytime today. For context, I was terminated for refusing to cut my vacation short, my first vacation in 9 years, to handle an emergency that I had already prepared the team to manage. I provided extensive documentation, training, and resources before I left, and I offered to assist remotely. That wasn't acceptable to Gerald, so he terminated my employment. As for Meridian, I'll let Richard Chen speak to his reasons for ending the partnership, but I think you'll find the timing is not coincidental. Richard is a personal friend as well as a professional contact, and he's aware of how I was treated." She called me within 10 minutes. "Marcus, I'm so sorry. I had no idea this was happening until I saw the HR report this morning. Gerald told me you'd resigned." "Of course he did." "I didn't resign, Susan. I was fired for taking an approved vacation." I heard her take a deep breath. "Tell me everything, from the beginning." I did. I walked her through the phone call, the ultimatum, the termination email. I explained the preparation I'd done before leaving, the transition documents, the training sessions, the video tutorials, the 3 separate meetings with Todd. I told her about offering to help remotely, about being willing to get on calls and walk the team through whatever they needed. I kept my tone factual, professional, letting the facts speak for themselves. "This is unacceptable," Susan said when I finished. Her voice was tight with anger, but I could tell it wasn't directed at me. "Marcus, I want to fix this.
come back. I'll reverse the termination, give you a raise, and have a serious conversation with Gerald about boundaries and management practices. What happened to you goes against everything this company is supposed to stand for. A week ago, I would have jumped at that offer. The validation, the recognition, the promise of change, it would have been enough. But sitting there on my balcony in Santorini with the sun rising over the Aegean and a future full of possibility ahead of me, I realized something. I didn't want to go back. Susan, I appreciate that more than you know, but I've accepted a position elsewhere. Silence. Already? Marcus, you were just terminated yesterday. Let's just say the opportunity was already there. I'd been too loyal to consider it before. Is it Meridian? Are you going to Meridian? I'm not at liberty to discuss my new employer yet, but you'll know soon enough. Another pause. I understand, and I can't blame you. For what it's worth, losing you is one of the biggest mistakes this company has made. You were exceptional, Marcus. I'm sorry we didn't show you that while we had the chance. Thank you, Susan. That means a lot. Can I ask you something? Off the record? Of course. How long have you been unhappy here? The question caught me off guard. I thought about it. Really thought about it. Honestly, probably 3 years, maybe longer. But I kept telling myself it would get better, that if I just worked harder, proved myself more, eventually I'd get the recognition and opportunities I deserved. I kept waiting for things to change instead of realizing I needed to change them myself. I wish you'd come to me, Susan said softly. I wish I'd paid more attention. I've been so focused on growing the business that I lost sight of the people making that growth possible. That's on me. Susan, you built something impressive. Don't let what happened with me overshadow that, but maybe use it as a wake-up call. Look at your culture, your management practices, how your executives treat their teams, because I guarantee you I'm not the only person who's been unhappy. I'm just the first one who got pushed far enough to leave. After we hung up, I felt a weight lift that I hadn't even known I was carrying. Closure, validation, and the freedom to move forward without looking back. I spent the rest of my vacation actually relaxing. I explored the island, hiking along the Caldera Rim and discovering tiny villages that tourists rarely visited. I ate incredible food, fresh seafood, Greek salads with tomatoes that actually tasted like tomatoes, baklava so good it made me understand why people wrote poetry about food. I met interesting people, including a retired teacher from Australia who told me stories about her 40 years in education, and a young couple from Germany who were traveling the world before settling down to start their careers. I read 3 novels, something I hadn't had time for in years. I slept better than I had in years, waking naturally with the sun instead of the jarring sound of an alarm. Every morning, I'd check my email and see the growing chaos at Titanium Solutions as they scrambled to deal with the Meridian situation and realized just how much institutional knowledge had walked out the door with me. Todd, the interim operations manager, sent me 3 emails begging for help, offering to pay me as a consultant at rates that would have been insulting if they weren't so desperate. I politely declined. Other colleagues reached out with questions about systems I'd built, processes I'd established, relationships I'd managed. I helped where I could, answering questions that would take me 5 minutes but would save them hours of frustration. But I made it clear I wasn't coming back, wasn't available for ongoing support, wasn't going to be this safety net. Gerald sent nothing. His silence spoke volumes. On my last day in Greece, I received an email from Richard with the subject line, "Thought you'd enjoy this." It was a forwarded email chain, the meeting between Meridian and Titanium Solutions. Richard had included his notes. Marcus, they showed up with a whole dog and pony show trying to save the account. Gerald spent 20 minutes explaining how they were restructuring for excellence and how your concerns would be addressed by their enhanced team. He brought charts, metrics, a whole presentation about their commitment to client service. I let him finish, then asked one question. Is Marcus Webb part of this enhanced team? The look on his face was priceless. He stammered something about how they'd moved on from that situation and had other talented people ready to step up. I asked who specifically would be managing our account. He named someone I'd never heard of. I asked about their experience with our company, our systems, our needs. He couldn't answer. When he said no, I thanked them for their time and ended the meeting. Thought you should know. Gerald asked if bringing you back would change my decision. I told him that ship had sailed, and maybe he should think about the consequences of his actions before burning bridges with talented people. See you in 2 weeks, partner. I laughed out loud, startling a cat that had been lounging near my table at the cafe where I was having my final Greek coffee. The cat gave me an indignant look before settling back down, apparently deciding I wasn't a threat. 2 weeks later, I walked into Meridian Technologies as their new vice president of operations. The office was in a renovated warehouse in the West Loop, all exposed brick and high ceilings and natural light. It was modern, bright, and filled with people who actually seemed happy to be there. There was a coffee bar with a real barista, comfortable seating areas for informal meetings, and, most surprisingly, a gym and a meditation room. "We believe in taking care of our people," Richard explained as he gave me the tour. "Happy, healthy employees do better work. It's not complicated." Richard greeted me personally, introducing me to the team I'd be leading, a group of smart, enthusiastic professionals who were excited to learn from me. There was Maya, an operations specialist who'd worked at 3 startups and had stories about every mistake a young company could make. There was James, fresh out of grad school with a degree in industrial engineering and ideas about process optimization that were actually innovative. There was Patricia, who'd spent 15 years in corporate America before deciding she wanted to work somewhere that valued creativity over hierarchy. "Welcome home," Richard said, shaking my hand. "Ready to build something great?" "Absolutely." My first month at Meridian was everything I'd hoped for and more. The work was challenging, but manageable. I had resources, support, and a leadership team that valued input from all levels. We had weekly strategy meetings where everyone was encouraged to contribute ideas, where disagreement was seen as healthy rather than insubordinate, where the best idea won regardless of who suggested it. I left the office at reasonable hours. I went to the gym. I had dinner with friends. I started dating again, meeting a woman named Sarah through a friend's dinner party. She was a graphic designer with her own small studio, and she understood the demands of building a career without letting it consume your life. I remembered what it felt like to have a life outside of work. About 6 weeks into my new role, I was having lunch at a downtown restaurant when I spotted a familiar figure at the bar. Gerald Hutchins, looking considerably more worn than the last time I'd seen him. His suit was wrinkled, his tie loosened, and he was nursing what appeared to be a whiskey at 2 in the afternoon on a Tuesday afternoon. His face was drawn, with dark circles under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights and mounting stress. I debated walking past without saying anything, but curiosity got the better of me. "Gerald?" He looked up, and for a moment I saw genuine shock across his face. Then it hardened into something defensive, his jaw tightening. "Webb, heard you landed on your feet." "I did. How are things at Titanium Solutions?" He laughed bitterly, taking another sip of his whiskey. "You know how they are. You cost us the Meridian account. $3 million in annual revenue, gone." "You cost me the account." That's an interesting interpretation. "Don't play innocent. You poisoned that relationship." I slid onto the bar stool next to him and signaled the bartender for a water. "Gerald, I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to really hear it."
I didn't poison anything. I built that relationship over 4 years of excellent work. Richard Chen trusted me, trusted my judgment, trusted that I'd deliver results. When you fired me for taking a vacation I'd earned, you sent a message about what Titanium Solutions values. Richard simply responded to that message. "So you admit you turned him against us?" "No, you did that all by yourself when you chose ego over common sense." Gerald's jaw tightened. "You think you're so smart, don't you? So superior. You were just an operations manager, Marcus, replaceable. And yet, you haven't replaced me. I hear Todd quit after 3 weeks, and that 2 other people from the operations team left, and that you've lost 2 more major clients since Meridian. Doesn't sound very replaceable to me. How did you—" He stopped himself. "Doesn't matter. We'll be fine." "I'm sure you will, but here's the thing, Gerald. You taught me an important lesson. You taught me that loyalty without reciprocity is just exploitation, that working yourself to death for people who don't value you is a waste of a life. So in a way, I should thank you." I stood up, leaving money on the bar for my water. "For what it's worth, I hope things work out for you. But maybe consider treating your next talented employee a little better. You might be surprised what happens when people feel valued." I walked out of that restaurant feeling lighter than air. No anger, no resentment, just a profound sense of gratitude for the bullet I'd dodged. 6 months later, Meridian Technologies announced a major expansion, with me leading the new operations division. The press release mentioned my previous experience and my vision for scalable, sustainable growth. My phone blew up with congratulations from former colleagues, industry contacts, and even a few headhunters trying to recruit me away. One message stood out.
It was from Susan Park. "Congratulations, Marcus. I'm not surprised by your success, only by how quickly it came. For what it's worth, Gerald is no longer with Titanium Solutions. After losing 3 more major accounts and a mass exodus of talent, the board decided a change was needed. I should have made that change sooner. I should have valued you more when I had the chance. Wishing you continued success." I read it twice, then archived it. That chapter of my life was closed. That evening, I sat on my apartment balcony, a much nicer apartment than I'd been able to afford before, and thought about that day in Santorini. The day my old life ended and my new one began. The day I learned that sometimes the worst thing that can happen to you is actually the best thing in disguise. My phone rang. It was Richard. "Hey, got a minute? I want to run something by you about the Q4 strategy." "Sure, what's up?" "Actually, you know what? It can wait until tomorrow. Enjoy your evening. See you in the morning." He hung up before I could respond. I smiled, setting my phone down and picking up the book I'd been reading. A novel, not a business manual. Something I was reading purely for pleasure. The sun was setting over Chicago, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. Somewhere out there, Gerald was probably still blaming me for his failures, still refusing to see his role in his own downfall. But that wasn't my problem anymore. I'd learned the hard way that you can't pour from an empty cup, that loyalty is a two-way street, and that sometimes the best thing you can do for yourself is walk away from people who don't value you. Gerald thought he was punishing me when he fired me that day in Greece. He thought he was teaching me a lesson about priorities and commitment. Instead, he set me free. And as I sat there, successful and content, with a career I loved and a life I actually got to live, I realized something. Gerald had picked up the check for my freedom. He'd paid for my escape from a toxic situation with his own arrogance and short-sightedness. He just didn't know it. And honestly, that made it even sweeter. But the story doesn't end there, because life has a way of coming full circle in the most unexpected ways. About a year into my role at Meridian Technologies, Richard called me into his office with an unusual request. "Marcus, I need your opinion on something. We're considering an acquisition. Small consulting firm, good client base, but they've been struggling lately. The price is right, and I think with proper management we could turn it around and integrate their services into our offerings." He slid a folder across his desk. I opened it and felt my eyebrows rise. Titanium Solutions. "You're kidding." "I'm not. The board is pushing for it. The numbers make sense, but I wanted to check with you first, given your history there." I leaned back in my chair, processing this information. Titanium Solutions, the company that had consumed 9 years of my life, that fired me for taking a vacation, was now struggling enough to be an acquisition target? "What happened to them?" I asked. Richard pulled up a report on his computer. "After we pulled our account, 3 other major clients followed suit within 6 months. Apparently, you were the glue holding a lot of those relationships together. They've had massive turnover in their operations department, 5 different managers in 18 months. Their reputation in the industry took a hit. Susan Park is still CEO, but she's looking for an exit strategy. The board wants to sell before things get worse." I thought about Susan, about the genuine regret in her voice when we'd last spoken. She'd built that company from nothing, and watching it crumble must have been devastating. If we acquire them, what's the plan? Full integration. We keep some of their staff, let go of the dead weight, and essentially absorb their client base and infrastructure. I'd want you to oversee the transition, naturally. You know the company better than anyone. What about the executive team? Most would be let go. Susan would get a generous severance and probably a consulting role if she wants. As for the others, he paused meaningfully, Gerald Hutchins is already gone, as you know. The rest would be evaluated on a case-by-case basis. I sat with that for a moment. A year ago, the idea of Titanium Solutions failing would have filled me with bitter satisfaction. But now I just felt tired. Tired of carrying anger, tired of dwelling on the past. "Do it," I said finally, "but I have some conditions." "Name them." "First, any employees who are kept on are treated fairly. No revenge firings, no petty grudges. If someone is good at their job and fits our culture, they stay. Second, Susan gets a fair deal. She made mistakes, but she built something real, and she deserves respect for that. And third, I want to personally reach out to some of the junior staff I worked with, people like Jennifer from accounting, good people who got caught in a bad situation. I want to make sure they have a place here if they want it." Richard smiled. This is why you're the best, Marcus. You could have used this as an opportunity for Rayback. Instead, you're thinking about the people who had nothing to do with what happened to you. Revenge is exhausting, and honestly, I already won. I have a job I love, a boss who respects me, and a future that excites me. What more could I want? The acquisition went through 3 months later. I spent those months preparing, building a transition team, and, yes, reaching out to former colleagues. Jennifer was one of the first people I called. Marcus? Oh my God, I heard the news. Is it true? Meridian is buying Titanium Solutions? It's true, and I wanted to talk to you about your future. We're going to need a strong accounting team, and I can't think of anyone I'd rather have leading it than you. She was quiet for a moment, and I could hear the emotion in her voice when she spoke. You're offering me a job? I'm offering you a career, Jen. Better pay, better benefits, and a company culture that actually values work-life balance. Interested? When do I start? The day the acquisition was finalized, I walked through the doors of Titanium Solutions for the first time in over a year. The office looked the same gray carpets, same generic motivational posters on the walls, same conference rooms where I'd spent countless hours solving problems. But it felt different, smaller somehow, less intimidating. Susan was waiting in her office. She stood when I entered, and I could see the weight of the past year in her eyes. Marcus, thank you for coming. Susan, how are you holding up? She laughed, but there was no humor in it. I've been better, but I suppose I've been worse too. I hear you're overseeing the transition. I am, and I want you to know that we're going to treat your people fairly. This isn't about revenge or settling scores. It's about building something stronger. She nodded, blinking back tears. I owe you an apology, a real one. What happened to you was inexcusable, and I should have stepped in sooner. I should have seen what Gerald was doing, how he was treating people. I was so focused on the big picture that I missed what was happening right in front of me. I appreciate that, I said sincerely. And for what it's worth, I don't blame you. You trusted your executives to do their jobs. That's not a character flaw. Maybe not, but it was a leadership failure. I lost good people because I wasn't paying attention. I lost you. We talked for another hour, going over the transition details, discussing which employees she thought would thrive in Meridian's culture, and sharing stories about the company's history. By the end, I felt a sense of closure I hadn't realized I needed. As I was leaving, Susan stopped me. Marcus, for what it's worth, I'm glad you ended up where you did. You're exactly where you should be, doing exactly what you're supposed to be doing. I just wish things had happened under better circumstances. Me too. But you know what? I don't think I would have left if Gerald hadn't forced my hand. Sometimes we need a push to make the changes we're too scared to make ourselves. Over the next 6 months, we integrated Titanium Solutions into Meridian Technologies. It was challenging work, merging cultures, streamlining processes, and reassuring nervous employees that their jobs were secure. But it was also deeply satisfying. I got to work with people I'd missed, like Jennifer, who absolutely thrived in her new role. I got to fix systems I'd always known were broken but never had the authority to change. And I got to build something new from the ashes of something old. One afternoon, about 8 months after the acquisition, Richard knocked on my door when he was working late. Got a minute? Always. What's up? He sat down, looking uncharacteristically serious. Wanted to talk to you about something. The board has been incredibly impressed with how you handled the Titanium Solutions integration. The way you managed the people side of things, the way you turned a potentially messy situation into a smooth transition, it's been noticed. I appreciate that, but I had a great team. It wasn't just me. That's exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about. Marcus, we're creating a new position, Chief Operating Officer. We want someone who can oversee all our operations, someone who understands both the technical side and the human side of business.